things. So this is our lecture and practice for Design 301. It's Thursday, July 1st. Yippee-yi-yo-ki-yay. Next week, we'll be working on individualized projects, but we still have a few standard plates to go through today. So I'll be recording those, and then I'm going to stop halfway through when I go to a new plate. And today, we're going to work this morning on plate 7, which is the civil, plate 8, which is the interior, and this afternoon, I'll do plate 9. Now, I did put a more clear version of plate 7. It's called plate 7B in the Google Drive. I noticed that I know exactly what it says, but you might have problems otherwise. So here we go. So let's take a look at plate 7B and find some things. It's about 160 feet. It's civil. And I see that I've got a couple of different line types. And I also notice that these are decimal feet. That's cluing me in that this thing is going to be in decimal feet and about 160. So let me get started with that now at this point. So I'm just going to draw a line. First, I'm going to hit my units. And it's decimal. That's good. But this says inches. So I'm going to change it so that when I type 1, I'm typing 1 foot. And when I type 1.12, it's 1.12 feet. It is not feet and inches. It's decimal feet. And then I also noticed there were some weird degree things. So I'm going to put these surveyors units in, and you don't really have to understand them. I'll give you a brief discussion of them. But that way it'll talk, and you'll see that we have north so many degrees and so many minutes. So we're going to do that. Survey units. And you don't have to. You could do this whole thing in regular degrees and be awfully, awfully darn close for anything. And it would be good for anything but, oops, hold on. I'm adjusting my table height somehow. It would be good for anything except for a legal property document. Okay, so there we go. And so now let me just make something that's 160 long. And that's about how big I need to be. So now when I bring in my plate, and notice when I zoom in, I can read it, which I couldn't read before. Okay, so there we go. And I also noticed that my dots didn't come out big enough. They looked pretty good on my layout, but they didn't print very well. So I either had them on the wrong layer when I did this, but there should be little dots there. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go to my resource file, and I'm going to get my layers. And it's civil, so I need the property lines. These are hidden lines, so I need hidden. I need text. Now, civil people usually put their text and their dimensions on the same one, so I'm going to do that too. I might need thick and thin. Who knows? I'll definitely need a depth points layer. That might be good enough. We'll see. And this is going to be on a B size layout. So let me get my B size layout in there right off the bat. It'll be an architectural. And then I do see here that there's like, this is going to be really weird. This one is not set up. But I'm going to put in a mechanical XX and I'm going to modify it for you. So I'm going to go mechanical XX. And then I'll show you what we do with that. So there's a little bit of stuff to do. All right, so now what I notice is if I look at how this is written as the survey was done. So I think they started here and went due east. So I should make my first line there and go due east. And then they went up to here for their next one, and that's 115 long. And the angle of my line is north, 3 degrees, 15 minutes west. Now, what does that mean? It means that if I started out and I drew a line 115 long, perfectly straight upwards, which is north, and then I rotated it 3 degrees and 15 minutes to the west, I'd end up there. So what is that 3 degrees? That we kind of get 15 minutes. So that's kind of weird. There, and this is all, believe it or not, some people think it's because these were all done by clockmakers, but it's not. It goes back to the original way that people could construct a perfect circle or estimate a perfect circle, and it was off of 60-degree increments, because that's how they could divide a circle, basically using a compass, and get it exact. And so everything is off of 360, 60, 60 minutes. Each degree could be taken into 60 seconds, and that's all because of geometry and construction with tools that were perfect. Basically 3, 4, 5 triangles and things like that. And so 3 degrees, that we all have in our brain. 15 minutes, that's 1/4 of 1 degree. But AutoCAD understands this terminology. It means start going north, then it's like pirates. Arr! Pace off ye 115 feet and face north and turn yourself 3 degrees 15 to the west. That's kind of how they do it. And I'll show you how to type that in when we get it. Or you could just draw your line and rotate it. Then we go 160 feet over this way, 75 this way. And look, these things never come back perfect. So you'll just close the angle. You'll just close that. Hit that end point. Because this is not perfect. It's not perfect. Okay, so let's see if I can draw that. And I see it's being drawn on the C prop layer. So I'm going to start at 0, 0. And I'm going to go due east 63.5. I don't need any symbols. AutoCAD just recognized that. Now, here, this is going to be cool. I'm going to go 115. And my angle is going to be N3D 15 apostrophe west. That means north, 3 degrees, 15 minutes to the west. And look at that. Isn't that cool? It did it. So I really just have to type this in. Just knowing that you type D for degrees, and you don't need spaces. You just type N, 3, D, 15, apostrophe, W. And it did that. Isn't that cool? And then it's 160 this way and 75 this way. And then over to my close point. Now, you'll notice that doesn't, it looks wrong, but when I put that on my layout, it will look right. So don't worry about it. Okay, so the next thing is I have these offsets in here. That's called a setback, which means you're not allowed to build anything in this area. It's free space for something that the city has recognized either because it looks good or they need access for some reason. So I can't put a fence until I get to this spot. Okay, so I've got my setback, and that's just an offset. Offset 10. And then I have an offset of 30. And my preference for getting these to line up is the fillet, and I did multiple. I just think it's, I have to type it in, fillet, multiple, and then I can just click, 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 click. I think it's just a personal preference. Trim would work just fine, or you could use the grips. And now these all end up on the hidden layer. Now my next thing is that this is a new building pad, and it's 24 by 36, and this corner is 50 feet from the front and 40 feet from the side. So I can do offsets again, offset 50, and offset 40. And that corner is where the building pad is going to go. So I'll put the building pad on the thick layer, and it's 36 by 24. You guys can imagine that that's exactly where that little building that we drew yesterday goes. So now I've got everything drawn, but I'm gonna put a little circle where that tree goes. And it doesn't say where it is. You don't have to dimension where the tree is. There's a tree there. And it says that you're not allowed to do anything to that tree during construction. That's part of your stormwater pollution prevention plan and best management practices. That's what the SWPPP stands for, Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. So you're not allowed to dig up these two trees. So I'm just going to put on the thin layer, I'm just going to put a little circle, and I'm going to estimate they'll recognize it. They'll recognize that there's some sort of a tree there. There we go. And now everything's drawn. I've got all my drawing drawn. As you remember, I can get rid of that. Make that as big as it'll be, so when I bring it into my title block, it'll scale itself as best as it can. So here we go. Now I'm ready for the real deal stuff. Go to my layout tab and put in a viewport. And there it is. And I think it said it was 1 to 20. So if I click my viewport, 1 to 20. There. Now there's a cool thing that I can do if I want, because sometimes I mess this up. And this is a new thing. If your viewport is showing, you can lock it so that later on you don't accidentally mess something up by trying to move something around. And all it does, so now when I go in there and I zoom in and out, I don't ruin my viewport. That's all it does. But if you get frustrated because you accidentally click into it and you ruin things, don't worry about it. Okay, so now I'm ready to start doing my thing. The first thing is I'm going to put it on my text layer. There's a donut at each corner. And I'm going to go with a 0 inside and a 0.18 outside. And that's just typical on any plot plan or site plan. You always put some sort of a little marker where you change direction. That's on there now. There's another cool thing under annotate that I can put a center mark on those two circles where the trees went. So that's cool. Now I can start putting in my leaders, and let me go ahead and put the plate back in there so that you can recognize what I'm doing. So now this is the next most important thing. What is the elevation of each corner? That's super important for anybody working with the site, because they'll use that to make drainage plans and topo plans and utility plans and landscaping plans. So those tell people a lot, so I want them. So here we go. I'm going to put a multi-leader on there, but I'm going to check it out first. My standard multi-leader is a little bit too big. I'm going to change my height, and you don't have to do this, but it's just kind of good. It's going to look nicer if those are at 1/8 tall. So here's a leader. And I'm going to have my caps lock on. EL period 26.0 feet. There we go. And the next one, and I'm going to try to line it up. It looks nice if I can line it up. EL period 25.0 feet. And that's a 24, not a 21. EL period 24.0 feet. I think this next one's 24 also. See, if I zoom in, you can see. 24, 24. And I'm going to line it up again if I can. It just looks nice. EL period 24.0 feet. And this one is lined up and lined up. Those tracking things are really cool. EL period 20.0 feet. Okay. So I'm making good headway. I'd better save it. I better do a save. On something like this, it's usually project 0, whatever project 0 happens to be. So, so there's two types of surveys that get done. There's I call them world survey, where you're matching out to, a GPS or a marker on top of Mount Tamalpais or something like that, and you're on a geo quadrant. Mostly for our program, we're working with respect to a site plan, a lot plan, or a development plan, which has a project 0 identified by the architect or the civil engineer. Okay, and that can be problematic. I did work on a project, the City Hall at West Sacramento, where they moved the project 0 after the very first round of drawings because they found that it didn't make sense. But one contractor still worked off of the old project 0 and buried one of my valves underground where they weren't supposed to, and caused all sorts of problems because we couldn't find it when we found out it wasn't supposed to be there. So no, it's off of some project 0 for elevation. Okay. So that's a good question. So now here's the next thing. These are all pieces of text. These are pieces of text, and that's how civil site plans are usually done. So I'm going to put a little piece of text in here, DT, and I'm just going to stick it right here. And I'm going to make it 0.09. That's really typical. And it's just going to go sideways, and it's 63.5 feet due east. There. Now this one's going to be interesting. Huh. How am I going to get that one? DT. Start right there. Oh, I can type in the angle. N3D 15 minutes W. It doesn't look like it worked, but I'll try it anyway. 115.0 feet, couple of spaces, north. 3, and now I can do the degree symbol. % D, 3, 15 minutes, west. Oh, that is so cool. It just put it right in there. I'm going to move it just a hair. Now you could also just type it and rotate it, or there's so many ways you can do that, but I just wanted to show you that cool thing. Here's another one, and I know what these are, so that's nice. Now I got to type, my angle is going to be 0. And this is 160.0 feet due west. Now this one, I can never remember how it goes. So I'm just going to type it in. DT 75 feet due south. Because I can never remember which way angles go and stuff, so I'm just going to rotate that now. There we go. And in general, you rotate things so that if you're standing on the right side of the paper, you can read it, or if you're standing below the paper, you can read it. Now, this one is a little bit problematic. I know that its length is 110.5, then I've got all that stuff. So I'm going to show you a new cool thing. And you don't have to do this. You can figure out tons of ways you can do it. But DT, and I'm going to type in A for a line. And then it's going to let me go, where do you want to line that up? And I want to line it up along that line. And now I can start typing. I can say 110.6 feet. And I don't remember what the angle is. How am I going to find that angle? Oop. Here's a cool way. I can measure that angle. If I click on it and go to my properties, there's the angle. But I can't copy it until I get into that little calculator thing. So right click, copy. Now, I have no clue if that was easier or quicker than just looking at it and typing it in. But it's another skill, and I wanted to show you. Did I come out 110.5. There we go. It's so weird. It doesn't really do anything. And see, because I did that aligned, it's not really giving me a good height. I have to move it this way a little bit. There we go. It's just one of those oddities that it doesn't let you get to it unless you type a calculation into it. It's just bizarre. One of the things that they've never really fixed in AutoCAD. But you can see we're coming along. So now I'm going to do a dimension. And I can see that I'll use my XX none. And I'll put it on my text layer. And I'll put a dimension on here. And I'll say from the nearest spot on there. And I'll say go perpendicular to there. There, and it says 40.00, which is okay. Let me go to the end there and type the foot symbol. And then, I'd like that to be those tick marks. And I can go into my mechanical and go lines and arrows, make them tick. So this is really getting into it. And, oops. Oh, I didn't. I'd have to update it. So let me put a new one on. Nearest. And so, if you don't get that part, that's cool. There we go. And I can make it put the foot symbol on automatically too, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. It's really just kind of a matter of getting some of these in here. How did I do? Is that pretty? Oh, no, look. I'm bisecting the line. So there's one more change that I should make there if I can. And that's this other, and don't worry about it, but your text should follow the line and be above it. So let me fix those, and I could update those, but I just want to show you what it looks like. And you don't have to do that either. I give you guys lots of stuff so that if you're interested, you can do it. There we go. Okay, so I got another batch of stuff done. I see that I need elevation listed on here. EL period 25.5 feet. And DT left, new foundation. And then I think that there were some dimensions on here. So if you miss a couple of these little things, that's okay. But you can see, it's starting to turn into a fairly reasonable drawing. I think I need my setbacks and preserved tree. And it doesn't really matter where you put these. This one's interesting. To get it to fit, I'm going to do that and watch. It's kind of ugly right there. If I click on this, I can drag this some. Now it fits there. So that's a cool little trick. And now I have my front and rear, side and rear setback. And it's up to you where you put stuff. I'm going to So I think I've got all of that annotation stuff. Now there's a few weird things. There's this section view. If you can get it in there, that's good. And there's this view view title. If you can get that in there, that's good. So how do I get those? I type TP, tool palettes, and I go to my annotation one. And here's my Imperial title. Isn't that cool? It's all set for you. And if you double click on it, that's site, plan, new construction, something like that. And my scale is 1 inch equals 20 feet. Isn't that cool? And then if I click on this is called a dynamic block. And they're not too hard to make. There's that one. Now the last one is my little section call out. There's a section call out. I'll close this down now. If I click on it, you can see I can change the direction and I can rotate it 90 degrees and I can put it wherever I want it. And I don't really care where you put it. I just want. So that means that somewhere in this drawing set, view number 1 on sheet 101 would be a profile section view of what's going on at the land right here. So it's a view marker, and this is typical of a section. So as an example, in one of my classes, I use this, and there's a vegetated swale running along this edge so that everything can drain in this direction to the east and drain to the north, and you have a very good stormwater pollution prevention plan because you're having the water stay on site as long as possible. And so, of course, it's nice to see what that swale looks like because you don't want it to just drain right onto your neighbor's property. So that's what that is. It's an architectural civil version of what you're used to seeing on a mechanical drawing is the AABB section. So there we go. Okay, and then you know how to fix this stuff up. ATT edit lets you do it through here. Or if you just double click on it, you can do it one line at a time. through here. So there. Wow, that's not too bad. That's not too bad at all. It's a pretty good drawing. So now let me go, watch this. Print. Continue to plot a second sheet. I'll just go Adobe PDF, tablet, layout. And let's just see what it looks like on my layout. Now, for some reason, I'm getting this weirdo border around it. My second border is showing up, and I don't groove on that. So the other thing I can do is, instead of plotting the layout, I can plot a window and say, just plot that window, and then center the plot. Oh, way more good looking. Okay. Now, I don't really care. You could take a snip of it from before for all I care for what we're doing. Again, I'm giving you more than the minimum of what's needed for introductory CAD. I'm giving you more. So, if you don't get the section view on here, if you don't get this on here, if, if you end up still with arrows here, that's all fine. It's not a problem at all. So long as you sort of go, okay, I get it. I see. If these don't quite perfectly line up for you, that's okay if you got close. If you struggle with this thing and just can't quite figure it out, that's okay. This is not the easiest one in the world. There we go. And there's my PDF, and it's not a bad looking drawing. Okay, any other questions on that one? TP, that's an important one. Maybe I'll make a little video specifically on that one. Yep. Yeah, I don't even worry about that. I just go, I put my ortho on and I go 75 feet. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. You need south, 0, east or west. It doesn't understand it if you don't. But there's I never do that when I'm just drawing. If it's one of the cardinal directions, I just put my ortho on and go. Okay, but I'm pretty sure that if you want to do that, it would be 75 an angle south, 0 west. South, 0 D west. And then it went south. Otherwise, it's just going to default. But just don't even worry about that. Just draw your line. The only one that you should really have to do it on is this one. Cool. Any other questions? That was a good question. Okay, so I'll stop there.